starting. In this session, as part of Master Snowflake Data Engineering, let's start understanding what are the concepts we are going to discuss as part of Master Snowflake Data Engineering team. So first we'll start with Snowflake fundamentals. We are going to understand what is Snowflake, Snowflake cloud architecture, and features of Snowflake, and we are going to discuss data warehousing introduction and data warehousing fundamentals. Once we complete this Snowflake introduction, we are going to understand the Snowflake architecture, and we are going to free account in Snowflake. And then once we complete that one, we are going to discuss Snowflake SQL practicals on Snowflake team. Let me explain diagrammatically. Yeah. So we are going to discuss Snowflake fundamentals. As part of Snowflake fundamentals, we are going to create an account in Snowflake. Snowflake supports 3 backend clouds team. It may be AWS, it may be Azure, it may be GCP team. GCP. So you can create a free account in Snowflake. So we are going to see creating account by opening snowflake.com. By opening snowflake.com URL, we are going to create a account in Snowflake team. Once we create an account, once we create a free account, then Snowflake provides nice web user interface called Snow Web UI or Snow Site. So using this Snow Site, we are going to write SQL commands. SQL is a prerequisite to SQL is a prerequisite for Snowflake. So you may coming from SQL background, you may coming from non-SQL background. SQL is mandated to interact with Snowflake. That's why we are going to discuss SQL for Snowflake. So we are going to discuss different SQL commands like DDL commands, DML, DRL, transaction control, data control, and with different filter commands. So we are going to practice SQL on Snowflake. We are going to practice SQL on Snowflake. Next one, we are going to discuss AWS for Snowflake team. Once we complete SQL for Snowflake, we are going to discuss AWS for Snowflake team. aws.amazon.com. Amazon.com. So here we are going to see how to create a free trial account in AWS Web UI. Then once we create this one, here we are going to learn two important services team. First important service is S3. So we are going to get the data into S3 file system. So as a Snowflake developer, we use Snowflake techniques called stages. Using stages, external stage concept, we can connect S3 file system and we can load the data into Snowflake environment. Other concept, we have SnowPy. We have a concept called SnowPy. if data is continuously generating in our S3 bucket. So instead of using stages concept, we use a snowpipe concept. Using snowpipe, we can read continuous streaming data from your input location, and then we load the data into Snowflake environment. Okay. And other one, we are going to learn EC2 service. Let's say uh, EC2, we are going to install Linux server. Let's say you are going to get data into Linux machine. If data coming to Linux machine, there is a concept called SnowSQL. SnowSQL. We are going to install SnowSQL software in Linux machine. Then we are going to read local file system, and we are going to write this local file system into Snowflake tables. Snowflake tables. And we are going to learn SQL, and we are going to read local file system data from EC2 machine. Then we are going to load it into Snowflake tables. And for all these, we need a very, very important service, IAM. So if you want to access S3, if you want to access EC2 machine, then we need a permission. So permissions, we are going to learn how we can create a permissions. So here we are going to learn AWS fundamentals, we are going to learn EC2, we are going to learn S3, and we are going to learn IAM. So here there is a concept called role. What is role? How to create a role? How to assign permission to access S3? How to assign permission to access EC2? So we are going to learn this IAM service. So as part of AWS for Snowflake, we are going to learn AWS fundamentals, AWS S3, AWS EC2, and AWS IAM. These are very, very important for Snowflake developer to communicate with AWS cloud. And after that, we are going to see loading data into Snowflake environment. Let's say we have different sources. So we are going to use different techniques of Snowflake. We are going to use different data ingestion techniques, and we connect the sources. We connect the sources, and we load the data into Snowflake tables. Snowflake tables. Using loading data into Snowflake, we use different techniques of data loading, and we load data from sources to Snowflake tables. On top of these tables, we are going to create views. We are going to create views. Let's say downstream is BI system like Tableau or Power BI, QuickSight, etc. kind of different data analytics teams. Instead of exposing complete table data, we can create a views on top of table. We can create a view. We can give this view details to our downstream systems. So here, as part of Master Snowflake Data Engineering, we are going to learn how to create views. What are views? How to create views? And we have different types of views. We are going to discuss what are different types of views and how to create different types of views in Snowflake. And once we complete this one, we are going to learn very, very important one, working with different formats of data like JSON data, Parquet data, CSV data, different kind of data. How to read different kinds of data and how to load the data in Snowflake tables. And once we complete this, we are going to discuss very, very important concept, Snowflake storage and compute. What is Snowflake storage? how Snowflake people calculate a pricing for storage, how Snowflake people calculate a pricing for compute resources. We are going to learn these two topics. These are very important for Snowflake developer and Snowflake administrator team. And once we complete this 10th chapter, we are going to learn very, very important one, Snowflake performance optimization. Let's say you are writing different SQL queries. You are going to write a different SQL queries. So let's say SQL query taking long time. If any SQL query taking long time, how can we optimize the such kind of queries? And what are different techniques available in Snowflake to improve performance of query? So caching strategies. So we use caching strategies to implement performance of SQL query in Snowflake environment. And after that, we are going to discuss very, very important chapter, Snowflake security. So we are going to discuss how we can implement authentication and access control on Snowflake objects. So there is a concept called user management. There we are going to create users, manage users by creating different roles to the user. Okay, we are going to look at end-to-end process, end-to-end process to understand, implement Snowflake security practically. Okay, and after that, we are going to discuss very, very important topic, chapter called Snowflake data sharing. How we can share data from one cluster to other cluster. Let's say I have two different clusters of my client and one cluster contain actual data. How we can share data from one cluster to other cluster using Snowflake data sharing concept. We have data sharing mechanism and we are going to understand what is data sharing mechanism and what are use cases to implement a data sharing mechanism when we implement this data sharing concept. So we are going to understand, we are going to see practically how to implement Snowflake data sharing. And after that, very, very important one, Snowflake integration with other tools and services. So how we can integrate Snowflake with different other tools. And after completing this 14th topic, next very, very important topics are Snowpark. By by using SQL concepts, by using SQL concepts, we can implement transformations on top of Snowflake data, But problem with SQL implementation is SQL is not solution for every problem. SQL is a fixed package thing. So whatever SQL commands available, we can utilize those SQL commands to implement transformations. If any data in complex problems, to solve that complex problems, we use programmatic approach. In Snowflake, we have a ETL tool called Snowpark. Snowpark we can implement using three languages team. Snowpark we can implement using Java, we can implement using Python, we can implement using Scala language. If you are using programmatic language, then programmatic language provides solution for any kind of problems. So Snowpark provides API for three programming languages called Java, Python, and Scala. In this, we are going to implement Snowpark using Python programming language. So we are going to understand what is Snowpark, how to set up development environment in your developer mission for Snowpark, what are softwares, how to install those softwares in your developer mission. Once development is completed, how to write Snowpark applications to interact with Snowflake to implement ETL operations. So there is a concept called data frames. So we are going to use data frames for loading data from Snowflake to data frame, and we have different data manipulation operations in a Snowpark. On top of data frame, it provides a lot of predefined functions to implement transformations. So we are going to learn what are different operations we can apply on Snowpark data frame. What is the advantage if you go with Snowpark with compared to different data engineering technologies like PySpark, AWS Glue, Azure Databricks, and GCP Dataproc. So if you go with those technologies, what are advantages? If you go with the Snowpark, what are advantages you will get? So we are going to see integrating Snowflake with the Snowpark, and we are going to implement a different Snowpark applications too. And after completing this one, we are going to discuss very, very important one, Snowpipe. Snowpipe. Snowpipe is very, very important to you. Let's say you have a source. Source may be AWS S3 or Azure Blob or Google Cloud Storage. Google Cloud Storage. In these locations, you are getting continuous streaming data. You are getting continuous streaming data. So in that cases, we can go with Snowpipe, Snowpipe, and we can configure Snowpipe to this continuous streaming data. Then we can load that streaming data into Snowflake tables. Snowflake tables team. So Snowpipe is very, very important. How to set up a Snowpipe and how we can configure Snowpipe to read continuous streaming data and how we can write it into Snowflake tables. We are going to do multiple examples on Snowpipe implementation. Along with data moving from continuous streaming location to tables, if we want to apply any transformations, how we can apply transformations while moving streaming data into tables. We are going to discuss different Snowpipe techniques to implement continuous streaming data into Snowflake tables too. And after completing this one, we are going to focus on performance optimization techniques and different troubleshooting techniques too. Yeah. So next one, we are going to discuss very, very important one. We are going to discuss integrating Snowflake with different cloud file systems. Here we are going to see integrating S3 file system data into Snowflake tables, integrating Azure Blob data into Snowflake tables. And along with this one, we are going to discuss Snowpipe REST API, how we can configure Snowpipe REST API to read continuous streaming data into Snowflake tables. And once we complete this one, we are going to discuss different Snowflake projects. Snowflake projects and Snowpark projects. So finally, we are going to discuss in this meeting. First one, we are going to create a Snowflake account. And we are going to select a backend cloud. You can select any cloud like AWS, Azure, GCP, GCP. Okay. So you can create a free trial account of Snowflake. The advantage is you no need to give any credit card to create a Snowflake account. You can create a Snowflake account without providing either credit card or debit card. Once free trial is completed, you can use same email ID for recreating a Snowflake account. You can use same email ID any number of times. And once we create this one, we are going to see complete SQL. We are going to learn SQL. We are going to practice different SQL commands on Snowflake. Next one, we are going to see AWS integration with Snowflake. Let's say we are going to integrate data from S3 to Snowflake, data ingestion techniques. Here we use stages concept. We use stages concept. We are going to ingest data into Snowflake. And along with this one, we have a SnowPy. We use SnowPy to read continuous streaming data. Let's say in S3 location, if data is coming continuously, then we use SnowPy. We configure SnowPy technique to read this continuous streaming data, then writing into Snowflake environment. And along with this one, to implement transformations, let's say next important one, after data ingestion, we are going to discuss transformation. So to implement the transformations on top of this data, on top of Snowflake data, we are going to use different Snowflake techniques. We implement these transformations using SQL on this Snowflake data type. And along with SQL, we use Snowpark with Python programming language. So with Python programming language, and we are going to implement Snowpark jobs to perform transformations on Snowflake raw data. Okay. So these are, along with this one, we are going to write Python implementation, Python integration with Snowflake, and PySpark integration with Snowflake, so that you will get a clear understanding when we go with Python integration with Snowflake, PySpark integration with Snowflake. If you go Snowpark integration with Snowflake, what are advantages you will get over Python and PySpark? So once you complete these implementations, you will come to know advantages of Snowpark. What are main advantages compared to SQL transformations, Python and PySpark? What are main advantages of Snowpark? Why industry giving preference to Snowpark for transformations on Snowflake data. And once we complete this one, we are going to discuss use cases and projects. Use cases and projects on Snowflake and Snowpark, so that you will get a clear understanding how we can implement real-time projects on Snowflake and Snowpark.